Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, Datuk, Datin, Tan Sri, welcome to IS Malaysia for another special discussion. Respected CEO, Syed Azman, Syed Nawawi, and also I see a lot of distinguished guests also. Please welcome to our special discussion here with Rabbi Yisroel Dovid Weiss, David Weiss, and also Rabbi Yusuf here, all the way from New York, Brooklyn to Malaysia. So, and Rabbi Weiss is no stranger to Malaysia. I think you have been here many times, couple of times. So, in our ride from the hotel, he told me that he loves meeting the Malaysian people and has close relationship with many important leaders in the country. And he has been talking a lot about an important message of the distinction between Judaism and Zionism. So I think this is a very important topic, especially in terms of what's going on in the Middle East, in Palestine, for instance. And I think we are about to learn a lot from Rabbi Weiss, inshallah. So perhaps a short, brief introduction about Rabbi Weiss. Rabbi Yisroel Dovid Weiss is an American Jew, an activist and a spokesman for the worldwide religious group Neturei Karta, an anti-Zionist group. So before, I think in UM we have a very controversial speaker, Gali. So I think it's time to have like another perspective, a very alternative perspective to talk about the issue. And this time we have a Jewish person, well versed in Judaism and the Torah, and both of them are fasting today, despite having a very important task. And I think I'd like to take no more time and invite Mr. Rabbi Yisroel Dovid Weiss to maybe like a 40-minute introduction and to begin a speech. Please.
With the help of the Almighty, I pray to the Almighty to bestow upon me His truth, His wisdom, that I may be worthy of conveying His message. And so, inshallah, with the help of the Almighty, sanctify His name and bring peace to the world. So, greetings. It is a great privilege and honor to be here by the iaismalaysia. I'm humbled. I'm not worthy of this honor, but I'm simply a messenger conveying the basic truths of, with God's help, of Judaism, the Jewish religion that I am part of, and of the people who are practicing the Jewish religion. It's not ambiguous. It's very clear what Jewish religion is, but unfortunately, the world has been inculcated, has been presented with an entirely different narrative, a different picture of what Judaism is, and what emanates from this religion, according to the world narrative, is the right to occupy Palestine. And there could be nothing further from the truth of what Judaism is, and does Judaism give the right to occupy? And the short answer is totally not. It's on the contrary. It is criminal. It is totally against the rules of Judaism. And with God's help, I will try in just to, like, you take a candle in a dark room and you light the candle and then it sheds light and everybody can see the whole. It's a big room, and just a little light takes away. One of the phrases of Judaism is that a little of light pushes away a lot of darkness, and it's just giving the opportunity from this to further study. We're talking about here. I'm sitting with, as I say, I'm humbled. Intellect here, a collection of so much intellect, and parties, distinguished and researchers and so forth, people who, with God's help, will be able to use this knowledge to be able to further study this subject, and they will see, with God's help, that it's exactly as we are telling the story, and therefore it would be critical that if the world would understand this, I'm quite certain the world would stand up in total opposition and not accept for one more minute the occupation. And I will give you just a simple example that's very logical. Apartheid. Apartheid is something that existed for many years, tens of years. And the United Nations, which was created by the leadership of the world, by the hand-picked leaders, distinguished leaders of the world, who got together and decided that they have to come up with a certain path in order that when there is a conflict between nations, it shouldn't result in death and suffering and so forth. It must be a more godly way, let's just say, well, they'll call it a humane way, we call it godly, a way of adjudicating and having peace. So they made the United Nations. And yet the United Nations gave full credence and acceptance to South Africa while it was practicing apartheid. Does that make sense? It's beyond comprehension. Yet it went on for tens of years, and when the people who stood up in opposition were arrested and considered terrorists because they were going against what the world body accepted as acceptable. And so but if you'll think about it, it's illogical. Yet today, any child who was born today, and you'll take, or was already 10, 12, or whatever, and is starting to develop intellect, and you'll start asking him, so what would you think? Is it proper that black people should have to sit in the back? Or what would you, that there should be a division, there should be a difference in because of the color of skin, or it's a division? And this child will look at you like you came from the moon. Or they will say, what do you mind? I mean, you hear you telling us all the time that you should always judge people and kindly and do kindness and not do anything vicious and bad and evil. So they will never accept it. And so if you would tell them that this is how the UN accepted South Africa, and you'll turn to the United States, where I was born and bred, and was created in God we trust. On our coins, it says, in God we trust. And the whole country was, a lot of it, they were a religious society. Religious, meaning they believe in God. And yet, they practiced slavery, right? They practiced, and there was a difference, and they had signs in the South that is still able to be found. Of course, it's not legal anymore, but you can find these signs that says, I like to use the expletive, but like they would say, no niggers, Jews, and dogs allowed, or to sit here or to drink from a fountain. This was the way it went on. So you can see that a society can do something, and it's acceptable by distinguished people, scholars, thinkers, and leaders, and they can accept something that could be totally, totally wrong. So with that example, we would like to explain that even though the world has accepted the state of Israel as something that is legitimate, that is respectable, it doesn't mean that it has to be that is the fact. It could be something totally, totally evil and wrong. And so with God's help, we will explain, being that the state of Israel, it based itself upon a religion. They're using the symbols of religion, the Star of David. They're calling themselves Israel, which is in the Bible Jacob, and they're not claiming that they created something new out of thin air and decided to develop a country, and you should give them support because it's such a logical and laudable issue. No, they're claiming that their reason for existing is because God gave it to them, that God gave this Jewish religion, gave the Torah to Moses on Mount Sinai 3,000 years ago, and they're simply continuing in this Judaism. So they're purely spiritual, they're purely holy, and if you stand in opposition to them, then you are actually fearing war with God, basically. And people are afraid. People get intimidated. They don't want to have a conflict with God, especially when you're buying stocks and you wanted the stocks to go up. You don't need anything to do something that may cause your stocks to go down. So people are afraid to touch this subject. They don't want to mess around with the Almighty, with God, and with the Torah that they know that it was given. I mean, the people accepted that there was a God and that there is a God and that there was a Torah and so forth. Even the ones that are Christian, they believe that there was that God gave Moses the Torah and so forth. So and they just feel that whatever they have a whole different concept and change, fine. But they do accept that this was the beginning, the principles of the world from God. So they don't want to in any way, like I say, touch this issue. Now, so with God's help, I'm going to explain, and I'll try to be concise and the basics. Judaism is a religion of 3,000 years, as I mentioned. God created the world, Adam and Eve, and then there was 10 generations, and there was Noah, and then there was 10 generations later, there was Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Ishmael, right? And then we know, so Isaac, Jacob and his children were sent to Egypt, people who study the Bible, and they were there for 210 years. They were supposed to be 400 years. God took the Jews out, and through miracles with the 10 plagues, and then the splitting of the sea. And interestingly enough, I mean, it wasn't just one person who came and said, this is what happened. The whole world saw this, and the Jewish people were over 1 million people, witnessed the splitting of the sea, the miracles of the leaving of Egypt. They stood around, they were taken into Mount Sinai, desert, and in the Mount Sinai, Moses went up and took the Torah from God. And when he took the Torah, they all witnessed God speaking to them. So this Jewish religion is very, very strong basis. And I'm not trying to sell the religion at all. By us, in Judaism, we discourage people from accepting Judaism. Everybody was created by God. Everybody, we believe, has to believe that God gave Moses the Torah, and there are 7 commandments called the 7 commandments of Noah, meaning that you have to believe in God, as it says in the Torah, not to worship idol, not kill, steal, or commit adultery, and to have a court system in every land, not teach from an animal still shaking, that's alive or shaking. Basically, you keep the 7 commandments of Noah, you will inherit the world to come. That's the basics of Judaism. A Jew has 613 commandments that was given to Moses on Mount Sinai. And if anybody can accept Judaism, but if they do, then they are required. They're 24 hours, 7 days a week. There's a lot of laws. Of course, we can sleep and eat, but there's many, many laws. So therefore, we discourage people from accepting this, because once you've accepted it, there's no refunds. It's done. It's done. And then you can't change. And if a person does that and he decides it's too hard, he'll be a sinner. Because if a Jew does not eat kosher, a Jew does not keep the Sabbath, which is every single week, once a week, he's going to keep the laws of the Torah, then you're a sinner. So why should we want to create a sinner? So therefore we discourage, it's one of the reasons we discourage a person converted to Judaism. Another reason is because we believe that God is exacting with reward and punishment, and He wants us to always remember that we are here as a tangible, that it's not a permanence. The body is not permanent, and that we should not solidify ourselves into the worldly issues. And so sometimes people stop serving God properly. God sends a warning if it's a plague, a tsunami, or something. So there's or anti-Semitism. And so people were thrown out of the land. They were banished from the land. The king would turn on the Jews. And so that happened throughout history. And therefore, we believe that it's all from God. Nothing happens, perhaps that it's just it just happened. We believe everything is God. God rules the world. There's nothing that happened. A leaf doesn't shake without it's the will of the Almighty. So therefore, reward and punishment is from God. And so we believe that if somebody will become converts to Judaism, a lot of times could be anti-Semitism or whatever it may be, or as I say, a punishment. And we don't want somebody to convert to Judaism and have to suffer through these things. So we warn a person, if you're going to convert, you may have to, it may be a lot of different things from God that it would be hardships. So we don't, although we love Judaism, we do it, but we don't, that's the reason in short why we discourage it. But that said, every other person has to keep the 7 commandments of Noah, we believe. And the Jewish people went on Mount Sinai and they all witnessed this we call the people of the book. So they all witnessed how, where people look, so everything was written. So there was never a gap in our history. So Moses brought down the Torah, it was written, and then he gave it to Yeshua, his student, Joshua, who took the Jews into the Holy Land, and it was passed on from Genesis. So there's never a gap in our history. And this was so Judaism is this acceptance of the Torah that was on Mount Sinai, that happened, as I say, 3,000 years ago. When God took us out of Egypt, he said to us that we are required to, he wants us to go into the Holy Land because it is a holy land, and therefore we should be able to serve him in holiness. Although God rules over every part of the world, as you see, a beautiful Malaysia, it's beyond words, the beauty and when a person gets used to something, you don't, sometimes you don't appreciate it as much. I'm sure, I'm not saying anybody doesn't appreciate it, but when somebody comes, a visitor, each tree I look at and wonder the beauty of it, because it's different than we see in New York. So when you appreciate how the wonder of the Almighty, how this world works perfectly and all the beauty of it. So you serve it. We're required to serve God all over the world, but the Holy Land, we believe, is like the garden of God, and therefore he wanted us to go there and build a temple there. So the Jews were required to go into the Holy Land, but the Almighty, and there was the Jews, they were called Erev Rav. They didn't want to go up into the Holy Land. The Jews were punished and had to 40 years wander in the wilderness. Moshe Rabbeinu did not take the Jews into, he was not allowed to go in. He saw it from Har Nevo, Nabi, in Jordan it is, and he saw it, but his student Joshua took the Jews in. Even when the Jews went in, it was through the hands of God. So what happened was, God told the Jews that they should go in, and he told them they should walk around the walls of Jericho. They walked around and it sunk. So it was all the hands of God. It was a spiritual thing. Anybody who accepted not to worship idols were allowed to live there in the Holy Land. But it was the will of God. But in the same Torah, that the God told us that we have to go to the Holy Land, he stipulated that if we are not on that very high level of spirituality, the land will reject us. It says it many times in the Torah, that the land will reject us as like a body is sensitive. And if you get a splinter, God forbid, or whatever it may be, the body rejects it. They have to give medication and things that the body should not reject the foreign object when there's a transplant. The Holy Land is holy, and it will reject us if we're not up to par. So the Jewish people were warned, we have to go into the Holy Land, but remember that if we're not up to par, we will be thrown out of the land. And that's all the prophets. That it was Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Isaiah, all the prophets warned the Jews that they should be careful, that God's warning that we're not up to par, that we're not. They weren't such terrible people. Maybe somebody who studies the Torah doesn't. You read a lot of his metaphor, and you could think that these. But they were not on that high level of spirituality. So we were thrown out of the land through the Romans. Now, but we as Jews believe everything is from God. So that the Romans came and the Greeks came and drove the Jews out of the land, it was totally nothing to do with our physical lacking. It wasn't because we didn't have guns. It wasn't because we didn't have the Iron Dome or things like that, or these type of things. It was simply because, as we say in our prayers, because of our sins we were driven from the land. Every religious Jew says in their prayers that because of our sins we were driven from the land. That's a given. That's the basics of Judaism. God rules the world. He rewards and he punishes. Everything that happens is only through the will of God. If a drunk driver drives into a person and kills him, so we don't say, it's the drunk driver, that's why he died, because we say, yes, the drunk driver will be punished. He did a crime. But the reason that there was a decree that this person should go and cross the street just then, because it was decreed that he should die. If it wouldn't have been his time to leave the world, he wouldn't have been in that place at that moment. So that's the way we look at the world. The tsunami isn't just that happened, the tsunami. And if I remember when there was in New Orleans or whenever the big there was other catastrophes in the world, and some leaders said, religious leaders said, it's people have to think about their sins. And the world got very angry at them. They said, how could? So they had to retract what they said. But they were wrong. They don't have to retract. It's that everything that happens is with the will of the Almighty. And I'm speaking to religious people. So everybody, this is the ABC. I shouldn't be wasting time. It's not wasting time, but talking about this. It's the basics of what a religious person believes. So the concept that we were sent into exile, that happened 2,000 years ago with the destruction of the temple. King Solomon built the temple. And when he built it, he had written at that time the greatest prophecy we call Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs. It's a book of prophets written in metaphor. And he writes and he warns the Jews that we are under 3 oaths. It's written in metaphor. It says, I put you on the oath, the daughters of Jerusalem, with Savos, with the buck and deer of the field, and that you will do not awake by love prematurely. It says it 3 times, this verse in the book of Shir HaShirim, the king of Solomon's prophecy. And our rabbis explain that we were warned that we're under 3 oaths of God. Do not awaken, God says, the daughters of Jerusalem, meaning the Jews, do not awaken my love prematurely. Once we are, even though he built the temple, but when the time will come and it will end, the destruction of the temple, you should not attempt to return en masse, in large numbers. You are in exile. You were sent into exile. You must remain in exile. God is compassionate. God is all compassionate. God watches and feels the suffering of every human being. But at the same time, it's like a medication. Medicine is bitter, but it's a medication to a person who's in exile gets humbled. They don't feel that they're big, important person. When you go traveling around, you feel helpless in a certain manner. So it breaks the haughtiness of a person. God dispersed us into around the world for 2 purposes. God is perfect, so everything has He wanted us, ideally, that if we would be practicing the Torah and doing what's proper, that we should be a light unto the nations. It's a worse. What does that mean? Because if we're doing what's right, people can learn from us. At the same time, it breaks our haughtiness that we should remember we were sent into exile for a purpose. So this is the basics of exile. And we were under 3 oaths. Do not return en masse. That's 1 oath. We're forbidden as a Jewish people to take ourselves together, gather ourselves together and return. Why? Because it was a godly decree that we should be dispersed. Secondly, we should not rebel against any nation. We're forbidden to, as a Jew living in Malaysia is required to pray for the well-being of the country, give respect and so forth, even, which not here, thank God, but even in the case where there were countries in the history where they would tax the Jews much more than others, or they would forbid, in Europe, it was very common that they were not allowed to buy land and so forth. Still in all, a Jew had to show respect, pray for the well-being of the country, of the leaders, and pay the taxes and do whatever's required, except to one point. In Daniel, it says this, the book of Daniel, that Daniel said to the king, he said, as long as you are taxing me, I will pay your taxes, and you are my king. But if you, the king said that they should bow to an idol. He said, but if you're going to ask me to transgress the Torah, to bow to an idol, then you and the dog are the same. That's what he said to him. It's a verse in Daniel. So basically, we are required to be loyal citizens in every land that we are living in, and show respect, and as I say, be good citizens. So that's the second oath. The third is not to make any attempt to end exile. These are called the 3 oaths of exile. This is 2,000 years we are in exile, and we went through many trials and tribulations. We went through the Inquisition, the Crusades. And the Inquisition, if anybody knows, I'm not sure, you all know that they tried to forcefully convert the Jews in Spain and Portugal. The Jews were living there, and they tortured them, they burnt them alive, and so forth. And so the Jews went through much suffering. Yet, and there were times in our this 2,000-year history where we had the capability. It was called the Golden Age of Judaism. They could have created and bought a piece of land, but they never did it. And the rabbis speak about it. Maimonides, Rambam, one of the great teachers of Judaism hundreds of years ago, they wrote letters to the people of Yemen, Taman, and Geras Teman. They all spoke about the fact how the people asked the rabbis, should we buy a piece of land? Should we make our own country? Remember, no, they said, you are forbidden. We are in exile. God is watching. God sees. It's the will of God. So we don't question the will of God. We try to be introspective. When something happens, a decree, we have to repent, have a fast day, and try to see what God wants from us to better our ways. And for instance, is it very well known in Jonah the prophet. It says the city of Nineveh. Jonah came to the city of Nineveh, and he said, and he was reluctant to go, because he said they're going to repent, and the punishment won't come, and then they're going to say I'm a liar. The whole story wasn't true. So he didn't want the whole story. The fish swallowed him, right? Everybody knows the story. So basically, there is this concept that God sends sometimes a warning that people should repent and remember. So the rabbis told the Jewish people that the solution is not to gather yourselves together and return, because we are in exile as an exilic decree of God. You cannot, in any manner, breach the will of God. You can't take a gun and shoot yourself out of a godly decree. So we are in exile. For 2,000 years, Jewish people respected this. Our leaders, who were the leaders of Judaism? It's a religion. They were the religious leaders. They were the rabbis, the Torah authorities, and Jews always understood. You went to them for your advice of how your life should be lived. So basically, this is what we did. There came a movement called Reform Judaism, which started like 100 years prior to Zionism. Reform Judaism. Imagine, reform. We're going to reform it. Today, they're the largest segment of the Jewish people. How could that be? They're going to reform. In other words, they're going to take God's word, and they decided they're going to pick and choose. I mean, maybe they should pick and choose if that clouds should be on top. Maybe they should be on the bottom. Rain-wise, I mean, what are you going to change? It's not yours to change. You can't run. It's not your world. And yet it became accepted. Why did it become accepted? It's works of Satan, but there is reform. They say what they are. They're going to change. We can't. You can't change the world. So it's not Judaism. Yet they label themselves Judaism. Why are they considered Judaism? Like I say, the works of Satan. But what did they do? They decided they're going to ordain their ministers and rabbis. They made it temples like synagogues, and a lot of it's changed. Some of it is similar, where they try. But it's according to Judaism. This is not acceptable. It's not Judaism at all. We don't consider their contracts or whatever the divorce contract, whatever they do is unacceptable. It's just considered by us nothing. And their ministers are not rabbis as far as we're concerned. It doesn't mean anything. It's a joke. Yet in the world, it's not a joke. They're respected. And somebody who would say what I'm saying is considered intolerant. What do you mean? I mean, what is that supposed to mean? How is somebody to dictate to me when I say we have a covenant with God? We made a covenant, a contract. a contract that we died for throughout the generations. And somebody's going to come along and say, well, that doesn't seem proper. It's not so nice. But anyway, that's the way of the facts. Now, from reform, excuse me, which was ongoing for around 100 years, they decided they're going to drop Sabbath. They're not going to keep the Sabbath is the concept that the world was created in 6 days, and then God rested the seventh day. So we as Jews are required to respect, to show that we believe in God's authority. We're not allowed to work on the Sabbath. So, but reform picks and chooses what's convenient, so they don't keep the Sabbath. That's a fact. They drive and come and go on the Sabbath, things that are not permitted for us to do on the Sabbath. But they decided they want to dress like they want to assimilate, and they should be respected. And the Jews suffered a lot in Europe. They couldn't buy land, as I say, and they suffered a lot. But so they decided they have a solution. They're going to assimilate. That was reform, Judaism. Now, but then there was a case of Captain Dreyfus in France, who was accused of espionage. He was a Jew, and it's a whole story. And again, time does not permit. But there was some astute reporters, I forget right now his name. One of who said something spells fishy, that he was accused of espionage, and he started digging into the story. And he saw that really this person, Captain Dreyfus, was being used as a scapegoat for one of the higher in the army there, a general, whatever it was in the army, and he was using this captain as a scapegoat. And he kept on digging, and he went to court. But in France, it became a whole issue. And all of a sudden, anti-Semitism, you started hearing people started spewing anti-Semitism. And it was very, very bad. And it was proven that he was not guilty.
I mean, like open the Q&A session.
Oh, I thought 40 minutes. I'm watching the clock. Yeah, okay, good. Okay, I'll join you on this. Basically, so they said Friedrich Herzl came along, and he said that, well, assimilation is not the solution for us. What we're going to do is we're going to come along and make our own state. And they were non-religious, and I'll show you soon the whatever. And I'm going to be very short. They're trying in 5 minutes. Basically, they came along, and I have pictures. We can see Theodor Herzl, Ben Gurion, Chaim Weizmann, Jabotinsky, all the leaders. These guys were non-religious, but so they came along and said, "But assimilation isn't the solution. They're going to come another way. They're going to make their own state." But the Torah says you can't. You're in exile. But they didn't have anything with God. They were non-religious. So they wanted a pure nationalism. So Zionism is a transformation from religion into subservience to God, which is the covenant, a transformation into base nationalism. It has nothing with religion. And in fact, they openly, totally ignore the stringent commands of God that we're not permitted to create our own sovereignty. We are in exile not to rebel against nations. Now, they wanted to make it in Uganda, Patagonia, different areas, because they were looking for something practical to make a nation. But they understood in order to be able they need a massive amount of support to create a country, to make a sovereignty. So they'll turn to Palestine, and they'll tell the world, who the Christians, people who respect the Bible, and they'll say, hey, God gave the Jews, the children of Israel, the land of Israel, and they're going to use that as a reason that they should give support for them in order to create a state. So they turned to Palestine, and they gave it the name Israel, even though they had nothing with God, and they decided to create a state of Israel. The rabbis, around the world, immediately, all the rabbis, leading authorities, stood up and said, this is unacceptable. They first of all, they're heretics. They don't practice Judaism. But even if they would, it's forbidden for us to make 1 inch of a Jewish sovereignty, regardless of any part of the world. Certainly not in Palestine. We're not allowed to return en masse. Certainly, and even if it would have been a desolate, uninhabited land, we would oppose this concept of a Jewish state. It's unforbidden, but it gets compounded thousandfold because being that they decided to make it in Palestine, there was a technical problem that it was inhabited. The majority of people living there were Muslims, and then the second community was Christians, and it was the Jewish. All three of them didn't want to be under this state of Israel. So, and not only that, but you can't steal and kill. The Torah says one of the basics you're not allowed to steal or kill. That's the basics of this covenant we made to God. So, but they had nothing with God. They were totally estranged. They threw away the yoke of the Torah. But so the rabbi said, how can you create a state? You're not allowed to have a state, and you're not allowed to steal or kill. So in every facet, Zionism is totally contradictory. On top of that, just it's Jews have to show gratitude for the good that is done to them. The Jewish people, when we were going through the Inquisition and the Crusades and all these hundreds of years, the Muslim countries took in the Jews, and we were able to flourish, including the Ottoman Empire, which was Quds, Jerusalem, and so Palestine was under their rule, and they took in the Jews. We lived together. We lived in, there was no human rights groups to protect us. We had a distinctly, we believe on God, but we have a distinctly different religion. So, and we lived in the Muslim countries who embraced us and gave us our lives. They gave us, so how dare you? The Torah says we were required to show gratitude. How dare you come and take the land away from the people who gave you a home? And not only that, but in order to be able to gain, and really just 2 minutes or 3 more, in order to be able to sell this to the world, that you have a right to the land. So they had to tell the world, oh, it was an empty world. People didn't have smartphones. They didn't have all this, and they didn't have very little knowledge of what was going on in that exotic land called Palestine. So they told the world, oh, it's an empty land. It's a land without a people for a people without a land. That was a Zionist character. But they couldn't deny that there's problems, that the people were fighting with them. So for that, they said, oh, these inhumane. These are people who are villains, and they just hate the Jews. So to complete the narrative, they said they have two weapons. One weapon is that God gave us the Torah. It belongs to us. They have a deed, the document, the Torah. And the ones who are living there are simply living on our land. Secondly, the ones who are fighting us, it's because they're anti-Semitic. They hate the Jewish people. And even though it's totally false, but that's the narrative that they sold. So they use the second nuclear weapon that they use, the powerful weapon, is accusing of anti-Semitism. Even though we lived together, we lived as brothers and sisters, we babysat each other's children. All of a sudden, the new narrative is, no, because they're Muslims, basically, they hate the Jews, and that's why they want to drive them out. They don't talk about that there was over 500 villages that were there existing, and that it was destroyed, and so that they say, no, it's because they hate the Jews. So because of that, Jewish people have from day one never accepted the existence of the state of Israel, and they pleaded with the United Nations. As I was showing you, that the chief rabbi of Palestine said, we furthermore wish to express, this is in 1947, Chief Rabbi Dushinsky pleaded with the United Nations that we furthermore wish to express our definite opposition to a Jewish state in any part of Palestine. He was representing the Jewish community there. And Jews for 76 years are beaten, arrested, and if it would happen in the United States, it would be a scandal. And this happens daily over there. So that's what basically the story, why we oppose and we will never accept the occupation, and why we cry and hurt with the suffering of the Palestinians. We are frustrated because it's being done in our name, in the name of my religion, and in the name as if the Jewish people, the more religious you are, the more you will support it. On the contrary, invariably, the more the religious the community, you will see. Once I tell you this, you can see. You go to England, come to New York, the second largest Jewish besides Jerusalem, you won't find one Israeli flag in Williamsburg, the most largest concentration. Why? Because they know their Torah and they practice the religion. They are anti the state of Israel, anti its existence, and we want a total free Palestine, a rethinking, just like apartheid. People realize that it is totally wrong. The same thing is with the creation of the state of Israel. It is totally it is a big mistake. Simply words, it is a mistake. And now I'll take questions. Yeah.
Thank you very much, David Weiss. I think for a very excellent brief introduction to Judaism and how it differs with Zionism, which is a very clear cut. So I think for this special discussion, I think the format is to encourage as much as participation as we can. So due to the limited time, I would like to advise each of one of you who asks a question to keep it very brief. So I think I will take the first three first, maybe from the side, or you want to comment questions. Let me see like the first three hands. First one. To be fair to the side as well. Okay, that Zain, that's one. And also to be fair to the back as well. And yeah, at the back. And I think he raised his hand. But don't worry, I think we'll get two more rounds of Q&A. So first of all, please.
We've been seeing in the news a lot of the protests inside Israel. Now it's been big, but it seems like even with the latest 2 days ago, the ICJ ruling said that occupation is illegal and they need to move out. But no one can do anything whatsoever. How confident are you that the people in Israel themselves can stop this killing, especially on the starvation and the water? Because I understand that their purpose is just to free the people who were kidnapped, right? But what we know is that the Israel people do not care about the Palestinians, but they do want their hostages. So how do you think that the Israel themselves, because the US is not going to do anything because they're controlled by Israel.
Right.
So is there anything anyone in the world can do now?
Rabbi Weiss, can we like take two more questions?
Okay.
The back, Zain,
Yes. Should I ask now?
yes.
Okay, hi. My name is Zain Salimon. I'm from iaismalaysia. I used to study in Rutgers University, Neturei, and I have formal education in Judaism. So my question is, actually I have three different questions. But first of all, I'm going to ask whether Neturei Karta is actually part of the bigger sect of Orthodox Judaism, which is Satmar. And secondly, I heard some criticism on the interpretation of the three boards. Some people say that it is metaphorical, it's not literal, therefore what the Neturei Karta tries to push is not really valid. But I want to hear your opinion on that. And then this is a very basic question. On your attire, is that like Ashkenazi Jewish attire or Middle Eastern? All right, thank you.
Thank you, gentleman at the back, Mr. Yisroel.
Hello. From your accent, I figured that you're from New York.
Yeah.
Okay. My question is that what the biggest and largest forces within Zionism is non-Jewish? So I'd just like to know from your activism's point of view, how are your programs, how are your strategies as far as this form of Zionism is concerned, and more specifically Christian Zionism, and more specifically in the United States where you are coming. Thank you.
Yeah. With the help of the Almighty, the Torah, it says, there's a verse in the Torah, it says, why are you rebelling against me? It will not be successful. In fact, it's a part. The Torah is divided into portions that we go through it every year, and it was just a recent portion that the people, when they would have to remain, there was a decree that we had to be 40 years in the wilderness. There was some people who decided they want to go up. They said, no, we're going to go in because it was God's will, and God's. Basically, in part of the portions there, it speaks about how the Jews were not obeying God. And so God said, why are you rebelling against me? It will not be successful. There is no such thing that we are certain that the state of Israel will end. It will end because it's against the will of the Almighty. Now, we're not prophets. We have no idea when this will happen. We don't know. We didn't know how long Hitler will be. We didn't know how long the USSR, when they didn't permit religion and they sent to Siberia. We don't know. We know what's right and what's wrong. So it was a great rabbi, Rabbi Beck of blessed memory. He used to say, I'm reluctant a lot of times to speak about solutions because then if you'll disagree with me, you'll say it's not your idea is it won't work out or something. So therefore, your whole thesis, your whole what you said is also wrong. So we have to distinctly divide the two. The fact is, just like a doctor, when he wants to prescribe a medication, he must diagnose the sickness. If he just comes along because he can write a prescription for cortisone or something, and the patient goes out feeling well, and he didn't understand what the sickness is, he's a criminal. So the issue is, the first thing is to diagnose what the issue is. The issue is that Zionism today, the world accepts that there's a conflict of religion, Islam, Muslims, and Jews, and that the state of Israel, you mentioned about the hostages or whatever. So it's like these people are complaining about evil people, that the Palestinian people are very evil. And they dehumanize them. That's why maybe the world is silent, because they managed to, over 76 years, to dehumanize the people, of the people of Palestine. It was so successful, and having the mic in their hand for so long. So, but that's totally criminal. That's wrong, because it has nothing. It has nothing. On the contrary, the Palestinian people were living with the Jews. They were our hosts. We were good. It's totally false. What's evil is because you came along and you took over their land. It's simple as that. And so the criminal, the villain, is Zionism and the state of Israel. End of sentence. And like the Secretary General of the United Nations said, it didn't come out of a vacuum. So we're talking here. You asked me what the people from what will they be able to accomplish? Will they have to stop? First of all, I don't know what we can do, what we can stop it, if we can't stop it or can't stop it. First, we have to know, though. The world has to know, and you, as researchers, as distinguished scholars, and the world leaders and the communities, the world has to finally grasp and appreciate that they've misunderstood the issue. The problem is there's an interloper. There was a beautiful fabric called the Holy Land, Palestine. Muslims lived together with Christians and Jews with a distinctly different religion, and that wasn't an impediment to peace. It's the creation of the occupation called the Zionist state of Israel. That's the problem. So don't keep on looking for different solutions, the Camp David Accord, this accord, that accord, and everything. And the solution is to remove something that's relatively new, that's impeding peace. Then we can live together in peace. There is solutions. We could, if the people, there's thousands of people who committed atrocities. They ran the camps, the prisons, and so forth, and they feel uncomfortable. They say they can't live together with Palestinians. Just like by apartheid, the people were afraid there will be a mass murder. But then say, no, it's just that's fear mongering. This, if you will take the people who committed these and use the billions of dollars that you're using for military aid, and you'll take these and they should move to the United States, to Canada. The people who feel uncomfortable because they're afraid that the Palestinians will attack them for the crimes they did. Instead, but the rest of the humanity can live together, because it's not a Wild West. It's not like wild people. We're talking about people who want to live in peace. The normal human being, the Palestinian leadership, if it's whoever their leaders are, whether it's Hamas, whether it's Hezbollah, whether it is PLO. They want peace. Everybody wants peace, and the ones who are that are afraid, we can move them to someplace else. That would be a solution. But I'm saying a solution has nothing to do with nobody. You cannot, therefore, decide because you don't have the right medication for a certain ailment. So you're going to say, okay, I'll therefore declare that the sickness is something else, and therefore I'll be able to give a medication for it. The sickness is the Zionist occupation. That's what it is. Finished. So that's very important to know. So I don't know if people in Israel, the people who are fighting them, who refuse to go to the army, the people are there. There's plenty of people who would love to be finished with that whole Zionism. They simply want to live. And of course, the religious Jews who are to the Torah, we want to free Palestine. So I mean, we can live together. And they are interested in the people of Palestine having back their respect, of course. So it's not only they're interested in the people and the hostages. We're talking the normal mass people want peace and want to live and give the Palestinians their lives. The Satmar, Neturei Karta was the name. Neturei, it's an Aramaic. It's from the Talmud. It comes. It says Neturei protectors Karta of the city. That's the name because it was in the 1930s. Before this, they would distribute news. They didn't have smartphones. They didn't have all the ways that we have today. So they would put placards on the walls. So they took a statement of the Talmud that it says a rabbi sent his students. Students went to a city. He said, when you come back, he told the rabbi instructed the students, please tell me who are the Neturei Karta in the city that you're going to, the protectors of the city. So they came back and they said, there's so many soldiers, so many police. He said, no. Neturei Karta, the protectors of the city are the scholars. These are the ones, the wise men, the saints, the holy men. These are the protectors of the city. So in order to fight Zionism, one of the statements they put on the walls in the city of Jerusalem was this statement in order to show against Zionism that they're not the protectors. They're machrive karta, they wrote. The Talmud says, those ones that you're looking at as the protectors, they are machrive, the destroyers of the city. The Neturei Karta are the ones who are, as I say, scholars and practice. So basically, Neturei Karta was given a name that was given. It's not a membership organization. The ones that are very vocal against Zionism were given the name Neturei Karta, which includes from Satmar. Satmar is a very large. Satmar was a city in Romania, and the chief and the head of the rabbis was custom to give their names after the city. So Rabbi Teitelbaum, Rabbi Yoel Teitelbaum of blessed memory, was the rabbi in Romania. He became the chief rabbi of Palestine after Rabbi Dushinsky. He was a second rabbi. He became the chief rabbi, and he himself moved to New York. And he urged his followers. He said, "If you can, leave, because you don't want to give support to the occupation." So tens of thousands of Jews actually left, and he remained with the title for 30, 40 years as chief rabbi of Palestine while he was living in New York. That's why we have such a strong community in New York, anti-Zionist. And basically, so now, so they come. The question was that is it like they say? What I mentioned in the Talmud is that it's just theory. People again can make Reform Judaism, and I can't fight them. The world say, yeah, sure. It's how many numbers are you? Oh, you're many more than the Orthodox. Okay, so you're legitimate. Somebody's going to come along and decide that you can ignore the Talmud, ignore what I've just mentioned, these laws. I can't fight them, but they're not going to change the facts. If somebody comes along and says 1 and 1 is like great Rabbi Beck used to say, well, somebody's going to come and with whole theories and a whole big blackboard and write that 1 and 1 is 3, and he's going to prove it. But you're going to turn around and say, okay, it was a beautiful hour that I spent with you. 1 and 1 is 2, right? You can't convince anybody here that it's night, even though somebody's been brilliant. The same thing is over here. They cannot refute. The fact is of Torah that we are forbidden to leave exile. That's Judaism. They're going to come along and we always say a good lawyer can take a mass murderer and make him innocent, but he's not innocent. It's the same thing, and the Torah says it, by the way, that a person, it says we're not allowed to eat worms. The Torah, the Talmud says I can prove you 150 ways that it's kosher. It's not kosher. If you're not allowed to eat pig, you're not allowed to eat worm. But you can prove, but it doesn't mean anything. The Judaism remains the same. The ones who are true to Judaism, invariably, the ones you will find the communities, we follow what it's right, and there's no such thing that you can. And Zionism, I will mention this because Zionism uses this constantly. What you'll ask them, many ask me, they say that what do they do with the 3 oaths that I mentioned, right? Something they do because you see religious Zionists. So one of their answers is, that the nations, when God sent us into exile, he put the other nations of the world under oath that they should not oppress the Jews. In other words, it's enough that we have to suffer. We're in exile with throughout the world, but you should not oppress them unnecessarily, whatever the wording is there. So being that we were so badly oppressed, so that it nullifies the other oaths. That's what they say. That's not true. And our rabbi says, so they're basically, yeah.
I think there's one more question, but it's just
the attire. Yeah, well, first he asked about attire. Okay. Yeah, the attire was that was clothing. Basically, it is. Being anti-Zionist is across the board. It doesn't matter what land we have. Many Sephardic, we have Yemenite Jews and everything. But yes, our clothing is from Ashkenaz clothing. Yeah.
So one more question is Christian Zionism.
Yeah, Christian Zionism.
Maybe you can make
Right,
1 minute.
yeah,
and
yeah.
Open second round.
It happens to be that I think in the coming week there's going to be the annual conference in Washington. Don't go. and of the Christian Zionists, they go every year. They're in the largest convention, Washington Convention Center, which is 3 blocks long, and they have this convention for Zionism. John Hagee, if you know the names of all these guys, and we go tirelessly year in and year out. We stand in front over there, and people are very polite, and different than the Zionists. These a lot of the ones from Israel who are vicious, but a lot of these people are polite, and they come over and we try to educate them, but they are so like into their issue of that, oh, the children of Israel, the land of Israel, or whatever. So it's very hard to deal with. That is why the Zionists picked Palestine to make their homeland, because they understood there's millions and millions of Christian Zionists, and they don't know the Jewish education about that we're an oath and not oath. They don't just know the books in the Bible. It says the children of Israel. So they are supporting it. That in numbers, they are much more than Jews, and in support and money-wise, it's all the same thing. They are the supporters of the state of Israel. But it's wrong. It's totally wrong.
That's great. I think we have exactly 12 minutes more. I think Dr. Said we have to end by 1:15. So can I get a raise of hands again? And, okay. I think Mr. Jason, you want to ask questions as well? Okay, I think one point for you. Sorry, I'm using my power as a moderator, but please don't be angry with me. I think to the gentleman with the camera, that one, and maybe another one, Mr. Arif. Yeah, I think that's all for now.
We'll see.
Unless you can finish it in 5 minutes.
We'll try. Maybe I can.
Take as me. Also,
But the story is that they didn't know, unfortunately, which we feel very bad about. They had arranged a live 3 o'clock.
Yeah,
3
o'clock.
Yeah. So I don't know how long it takes to get there, and we have to be a little earlier to
we can
get
extend it a bit.
so we can extend it a bit. Yeah. Okay.
So 15 minutes.
Yeah. Sure.
Please,
I mean, I'm loving to be here. I must tell you.
I think we have Mr. Jason representing the Christian community.
My name is Jason Leong. I'm founder of Association of Mexican Christians of Malaysia. We are also supporting the Palestinian cause. And I just want to ask this question because most times Israeli leaders, political leaders, will take out the Bible and they say that the Bible is our title deed because in the Bible it promises the promised land. But they are not Christians; they are Jewish. So at most, I think maybe not embrace the religion of Judaism, probably Zionism. So why don't they take up the holy book from Judaism or Zionism, if they have any holy book, to use that as a basis to build the promised land?
Yeah. Well, with God's help.
I'm sorry, can we
Okay,
get the
yeah.
question first? And the next one is
Yes. Yes, thank you, Rabbi Weiss. My background is comparative religion and basic language. You rightly pointed out that Theodor Herzl and his collaborators were actually secular Jews, and it was for them more a question of Jewish ethnicity rather than religion. But if we look at the contemporary scene in Israel, the Likud party has been able to survive largely because of parties which call themselves religious parties.
Yeah.
So if they had withdrawn the support, it would fall. So I mean, what is the status of these religious parties in your opinion? And further, looking at it from a religious perspective, for example, is a big attempt to hasten the advent of the Messiah. So, for example, there are people trying to cultivate a red cow, and fulfillment of biblical prophecy. And this is one reason why the Christian Zionists in the US are so excited, because they think when Messiah comes, all the Jews will convert, and etc. They don't even really love
Right.
So could you please
Address
this religious aspect?
You got that? Okay, Mr. Arif, please.
Assalamualaikum.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your session. I have questions with regards to Imam Shafi'i and his 614th commandment, saying that we should not grant it a posthumous victory. So he said that Hitler shouldn't be granted a victory because then it would be undermining Judaism. So my question to you is: would you see that post-Holocaust theology being a problem with the creation of Zionism in Israel? And also on the second point, do you see an implosion of Israeli society for not keeping with
I'm sorry, you have to repeat both questions. Do I see the post?
Do you see the implosion of Israeli society because now it's fully secular and
Right, yeah.
religious education is not granted on the young generation of Israel. Therefore, there's no link between halakha and also current lived realities.
Let me first address these two, and then I'll come back to this one. Yeah.
Is there one more question? From
Yeah.
This terminology of Judaization has been popping up. This is what they are doing with Judaism. So that is one question. Second one is, what is your?
I don't understand the Judaization.
Doing this, what they call Judaization of the Masjid Al-Aqsa.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So what does that mean? I mean, the second one is IPAC as the core power of
AIPAC, yeah.
Yeah, AIPAC.
Yeah.
It's been very powerful in the United States.
Yeah.
Are you doing something to break that with the influence that they have in the United States?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's go with the help of the Almighty. Yeah. I'm going to continue with it. He asked what they using the Torah. They use the Bible and so forth. Now, again, when you're talking about the Christians, that they use the Bible and not the Torah, you are saying that they're referring to. Again, mostly the Bible is the 5 books of Moses, and they're trying to draw the legitimacy of the state from what it says in the 5 books of Moses. But again, they're talking about the Jewish people who made this covenant, that we have this covenant that we are what we're required to do and what we're not required to do, what we're forbidden to do. So, but they don't have this whole, the Talmud, the oral law that's given to the Jewish people. And the Talmud is a whole other story. I'm sure I mentioned that people are piqued interest. It's not, it's very vilified, but it's in truth, it's part of the basics of Jew. It's the oral law, but it's massive. It's explaining. There's a lot of words in the prophecies that speaks about how this person sinned and this and that. It's a lot of times, but it's all metaphor. For instance, there's a story of a prophet that he took strange wives and this and that, but he never did that. It was just he was a great, very holy man, but he didn't. God felt that he did not rebuke enough the people, so the sin was put on his shoulders. So in other words, a lot of it is metaphor, and that's the Talmud is full. It's 20 volumes. It's that massive, and a lot of it is. But a Jew cannot. You cannot be a practicing Jew if you do not uphold both the written law and the oral law, which is the Talmud. So Judaism is only one Judaism. It's exacting. You cannot keep the Sabbath if you don't keep the oral law. It's because there's a few verses in the Torah says you have to eat kosher. It's very and what are all the details? It's massive in the laws. So without the oral law that was given to Moses, that later was written in the form of the Talmud, you can't be a practicing Jew. It's ridiculous. If somebody comes and say, "Oh, I don't follow the Talmud. I don't follow this. I don't follow the 3 oaths," it's a joke. It's not Judaism. He's just doing what he wants. It's an exacting way how Judaism goes. Now, when you ask what Christians are, they have obviously they have no respect, or I'm not saying respect, but they have nothing to do with what the Jewish. What the laws are. They don't understand that according to Judaism, we are forbidden for 2,000 years to go up there. They're just looking at the story. Moses went to Mount Sinai, the children of Israel had to go into Israel, and they're just selling this story because it's that's the story that the Zionists said, hey, remember this, and it's good for them. But why they're not using the Torah? The Torah is more or less, I mean, there's a lot, and the words are, but there's changes, obviously, but the Torah, they mean the 5 books of Moses. They're using that, but they're ignoring all the basics of Judaism that tells us, for instance, it says an eye for an eye in the Torah. So people say an eye for an eye, you knock out an eye. No Jewish scholar, he says that, he's not a scholar. There's no such thing. By us, an eye for an eye means that you pay the cost of a person. They evaluate how much the cost of a person without an eye and so forth. Those are things an eye for an eye in the Jewish teaching. So if somebody's going to call the Jewish laws an eye for an eye, it has nothing with Judaism. They're just abusing. Netanyahu goes into the and is going to do tomorrow, or going to go into Congress, and he's going to roll his eyes and speak about how God gave the Jews the Torah and Mordechai and Esther, and he keeps on talking stories. When he is running a country that doesn't keep the Ten Commandments, all the transgress all the laws of Sabbath, of kosher, everything they do wrong. In very short, by the way, they made a new language. What is the language? Ivrit, modern Hebrew. Our Torah was given Lashon Kodesh, the holy language that the Torah is written in. Why did they make a new language if they're making a Jewish country with the Star of David? Because they detest God. There's no reason for this. And Rabbi Teitelbaum, the chief rabbi of Palestine, said it's rather bow to a cross, which is not Jewish, than to speak this language that it's totally what we say treif, non-kosher, non-halal. And yet they're making a Jewish. They tell the world it's Jewish. Netanyahu is going to be preaching there that it's a Jewish state and you should respect us. When they made a language, they made a law system that Netanyahu is waiting to get charged as a criminal. And yet they have a Supreme Court, a court system. That's blasphemy. According to Judaism, if a Jew has a conflict with another Jew, it has to be adjudicated through the Torah. If they go out of the Torah, it's considered blasphemy. They made the country that's supposed to be a Jewish country, yet they didn't use. They made another law system. That in and of itself is blasphemy. The whole state is antithetical to, and it's hypocrisy. It's just using it as a facade. It's totally wrong. You just have to dig into it. Besides which, they dig up graves, archaeological places. The body is sacred by us. It's forbidden. I go on and on and on what they do to Judaism. But anyway, the Haredi supports unfortunately, everybody knows that the power and the ones that are forcing that they should keep on fighting is what they call the extreme, the Haredim, or whatever they call them, the Orthodox. Now, let me tell you something. If you will look at the communities, again, you have to do a little studying, a little going under the surface. You will see, invariably, as I said, the very religious communities are anti-Zionist. You're always seeing you think the Orthodox, for the settlers, a lot of these guys are idealists. That's why they became settlers. But as a general rule, almost entirely, they come from either non-religious families or marginally religious. The ones who supported Zionism, what they called the religious Zionists, was Mizrahi, it was called, a group of people. Who were they? They were not the very religious. All the greatest leaders in Judaism, the Ivy League of the scholars, all the ones, everybody opposed them. Who was the one who were religious leaders? They were what they called modern Orthodox. Modern means a euphemism, compromised. That's the word modern. In other words, they're compromising their religion. The modesty, the way the women go. You can go to the parades that they make. You'll see women sing. Men are not allowed to listen to women sing. They go dressed not like a Jewish lady is permitted to go. So and yet they call themselves Orthodox, some of them. So it's a farce. It's a simple farce. They're simply using the religion, counting on the ignorance of the masses, but they're not. So when you see the settlers, and they're always in the news, you see a lot of religious Jews. These are not the religious communities. Yes, they keep Sabbath, and so they're called Orthodox, but they're either coming from non-religious or marginally religious, and they're not from the core religious Jewish communities. Our communities don't vote amongst them. Don't go to a lot of them don't vote at all, and so it's unfortunately to the world they look at it as they are the representatives of Judaism, but it's totally false. It is true that they consider themselves religious, I say, but it's unfortunately that's part of the Satan. Like I say, just like Netanyahu goes in Congress and speaks about God gave the land, but they're not themselves Orthodox. And the red heifer, it's a mention about the red heifer. Again, it's just like they say they're going to build a temple, and Sharon went up on the temple to make a statement with 1,000 soldiers. Do you know that since the destruction of the temple, it's accepted around all Judaism that before there was Islam, the religion Islam, we are forbidden to go up on the area of the Temple Mount. It's considered that we get cut off from God because you need a certain purification with the red heifer and such things. You need a certain. Yet Sharon went with 1,000 soldiers for a political statement. So it's just the hypocrisy of it all that they're going. What does he need? What are you going to? He was religious. He had a pig farm, I think. What did he need on the Temple Mount? What was he looking there? He lost something there. What was he doing there? But they had to make a statement. So they go there and they try to use the religion as a tool, but it's considered the worst sin. The very religious communities, we never go. We're forbidden to go into that area. We never did. And interestingly enough, the Jewish communities always went to pray by the Western Wall hundreds of years. The WAC gave the permission, and the Jews would go and pray. There was never a problem. It was given by the WAC. Now they come along the red heifer. All of a sudden they need a red heifer. I don't know why they need the red heifer. They went up there without it anyway. But anyway, all of a sudden they need the ashes of the Torah. So it's all baloney. They're using. We know that these guys are sinners. They don't have a red heifer, and if they have a red heifer, it means nothing. We saw it's the Torah uses a metaphor, a pig with a golden ring in its nose. You want to pull them, so you put a gold ring in a pig's nose. That's what it's all about. Zionism, the state of Israel, is a pig they use the Torah as a. That's what it is, because the red heifer they need. They're totally ignoring the words of all the authorities of Judaism and so on. And we have put out another book. It's also all these things we can get to. It's the traditional Torah opposition to Zionism, historical documents. And like the statement of Theodor Herzl in his diary, he wrote, page 14, the way to solve the problem of anti-Semitism, this is one he was contemplating about, he was the father of the concept of making the state of Israel, right? He said, the way to solve anti-Semitism is to speak to the head priest of Vienna, to get an appointment with the Pope, to make a mass conversion of all the Jews of Austria to Catholicism. That's the solution. It should be done on a Sunday in the middle of the day with music and pride publicly. We are the last generation that held on to the faith of our forefathers. The conversion would be in St. Stephen's Cathedral. In other words, his solution is that they should simply convert us. This is a Jewish state. And just one more small statement to have to. Jabotinsky, who was the mentor of Begin, wrote in a newspaper, Haaretz newspaper, in 1919, well before they, unabashedly, he wrote an article. In October 22nd, 19, he said, in the national home that they're going to create, we will announce that those Jews who have on themselves the rust of exile and they refuse to shave off their beards and earlocks, payas, Jews have to custom to have payas, it's a law, will be second-class citizens. The ones who refuse to shave off their beards will be second-class citizens in their state they're making and not have the right to vote. They're making a Jewish state. Imagine, it sounds like a Nazi made this. And this is their state, the heroes of Judaism. And I could go on and on and on. The time doesn't permit now for that. But basically, you see the farce, the red heifer. It's like I say, he's going to say something. He's obviously going to go to Congress and spew some words of the Bible and something, knowing that all the very religious community are crying with the Palestinian people and hurting with them and the criminality and they're busy beating the Jewish people on the streets of Jerusalem because we refuse to accept them. The Judaism, I can't remember what this was. What was the question that you asked? I know I have your question. I had something about Judaism. Of what? Judaization. Yeah, like I say, it's not Judaization. It's a control. They're using the Torah as a tool, and they see they're successful. That they're trying to make that that you have. It's not Judaization. Again, they're abusing the words of the Torah. But the authorities of Judaism, nobody accepts. We know it's a farce. It's like, again, reform Judaism. You're using a power because the world is saying, yeah, you're right. Why not? But it's not Judaization. It's simply a power grab. That's what it is. A simple political power grab. If that answers your question, I'm not sure that answers basically what you want. And your question was, again, I didn't comprehend.
Actually, I had two questions.
Yeah.
First one was with regards to Email Faculty. You mentioned the 640 commandment. and not giving it the posthumous victory.
In other words, there's 630 commandments in the Torah,
And
and
they created the 640
they, you mean the
Emil Fakir.
no, but he said they, he said they,
They as in they shouldn't give the posthumous victory being the Jews.
they shouldn't give him a victory
by the creation of a new state. So
okay,
actually,
yeah,
don't give a victory to Hitler
right.
by being in exile. So you have to create a state which is Israel right now.
Right. So obviously it's not Jewish and has nothing to do with Judaism. There's a lot of people who like to write books on Judaism and theories, and there's a lot of movies about religious Jews. And you should just know, if you see a movie about religious, chances are it was written by somebody who has a slanted look on Judaism, or because in our communities we don't have movies and stuff like that because of morality. If somebody decided to make one, chances are they're either embittered with their religion, they left the religion or something. It's not a true picture of any of that, I could tell you. So
because I find it quite interesting, the establishment of the state of Israel itself, as it's antithetical to Judaism, because you're not following exile, and at the same time, because of concept universal and the particular, the Zionists are now embedded within the particular, creating the nation state of Israel, which doesn't actually distinguish them from non-Jews, but the Goyim.
right.
So
It happens to be ironically that in the Torah it warns us that God forbid if you will try to leave exile, it will bring, God forbid, incur the wrath of God. And in fact, the rabbis, which is a very big subject, I doubt we could even. My grandparents were killed in Auschwitz, and the majority of our communities, the very religious of immigrants from Europe, we died because of Jews, being Jews. And the rabbis said that Zionism was full blossom in like 40 years already prior to this, Hitler. And it says in the Torah that if you will try to leave exile, we will be hunted like animals. So it's not only not a commandment, but the concept of making a state and these things is God forbid. Rabbis who were being led to the gas chambers said that it's coming because we didn't stand up to, as I mentioned, like the prophet was, we didn't stand up enough and fight enough against Zionism, and therefore it incurred the wrath of God. Again, the Nazis will be punished by God, but what incurred the wrath that we're hunted like animals, he said, is because we're trying to leave exile and so forth. And I just a small little issue there on that. It happens to be that Hitler was from Austria and from Germany, which considered the elite, the most elite high society, and Reform Jewry came from there. Reform said that we're going to assimilate and we're going to be apart together with the Christian society, and therefore we're going to be loved by them. And God showed that Hitler came along and said, your grandparents were Jews, into the gas chambers. And from there was this terrible catastrophe that came from there. While in Hungary was attacked less with the very religious, they were less attacked. I mean, there was over 700,000 people. But I'm saying that maybe God's hand is to show, that you can't fight God. So it's just, they wanted to assimilate and it didn't work. The high society, this educated elite society, and did such atrocities, gassed people, killed people, and so you can't think you can be smart and outsmart God. Same thing with they make Zionists, they can make a state. The rabbis said you can't run away from God. It incurs the wrath. So it's not Judaism. It's not a commandment. It's on the contrary. We're not allowed to steal. We're not allowed to kill. Palestine should be a free Palestine.
So I think we have 7 minutes left.
Yeah, sure.
But to accommodate other stuff to talk on our patient, I think we'll take 2 more questions. So I think Marlena at the back and one more. So I assume the question will be 1 minute.
I think Rabbi missed one on IPAC.
IPAC. Yeah, you're right. I didn't have a big enough paper.
So maybe
APAC.
APAC. 2 more questions and then you continue. So one question and one more. Okay, one here, the gentleman.
Yeah.
So I think 2 minutes for the questions and 5 minutes to wrap it up. Maybe continue with the answer first for the
APAC. Yeah, APAC's American-Israeli Political Alliance Committee, which is, as we said, we don't accuse Israel of being slouches. not competent. The Satan is competent. The Satan has a power. What they do is they hire the most Israel and Zionism. They hire the most expensive PR firms, and it's an investment because they get back billions of dollars and so forth. And what they do is they use that second weapon. I said the one weapon is using the Bible. The second is anti-Semitism attack. And every single politician, we go to AIPAC conference. I don't go in. We stand out. We have demonstrations for many years, and you could see every leader, so the Democrats, the Republicans, the president, the vice president, the senators, the majority, the minority, everybody comes to bow to the idol of Zionism, and they come speaking. I'm not going to say everybody, but almost everybody throughout the years. And if you dare show a little sympathy for the Palestinian people or speak up again, you're a pariah. You're committing political suicide. That is what AIPAC is. AIPAC is American Israeli political, and they of course they wine and dine these people. They give them free tips supposedly because of some elite, of some purpose that's a high godly purpose that people are descendants are going. They're simply getting a beautiful big vacation to the Middle East, and everything, and they wine and dine them. And they treat, and if dare they speak up somebody or question anything they're doing, then right away they're labeled anti-Semitic and they're committing political suicide. There's books about that. Finley, Congressman Finley, it was like 5-term incumbent. Just now, somebody they use it. So that's what it's all about. They intimidate that people are fearful of speaking up. That's what I mean. We mentioned we try. We can't even meet with the congressman. I met with AOC, who's very from the and I didn't. We didn't make an appointment. We just were in Congress. We weren't there with American Muslims for Palestine. We were going out, and we went in there, and she happened to go into office. Everything is from God, and we were by their office, and we went and we spoke. It was very pleasant, and she was very understanding as well. She got attacks after that. There was pictures of, whoa. So her PR person said that we didn't make an appointment. I don't blame him. He tried to explain he didn't make it. But I'm saying they're afraid to meet with us because we're speaking against the existence. We're not political. We say the fact, like it says on my card, and we have cards here. We have these. You can go to the site. You can take anything off. We have these things. It says, "Pray for the speedy, peaceful dismantlement of the state of Israel." We're not saying, "Oh, make a state that you can steal half of Jerusalem," because after all, there was a big mansion, a lot of rooms. And the owner of the mansion went on vacation, and somebody came in and took over the mansion. The guy comes back and he says, "What are you doing in my house?" So he said, "Well, there's enough room for both of us." So the guy takes him to court. He doesn't want to leave. So the guy who went in, he says to the judge, "Look at this guy. He's such a selfish person, such an evil person. He has a big mansion with a bunch of rooms. I can't have a little bit of it." Imagine someone would take Rhode Island, take over the smallest state in the United States. Who would be silent? This is what we're talking about here. So they want to divide. They wanted a two-state solution. According to Judaism, we're forbidden to have even 1 inch of a Jewish state. It's not Jewish. It's a rebellion against God. And you're not allowed to steal or kill. So I met with many Palestinian people, and they said, "We don't want to give up our homes." I was in Baja Baraj that they gave me a symbolic key from the set. Just symbolic. They carry around the keys. They said, "I'll never forget my home. I'll never forget my." Otherwise, why should they have to give up their homes in Jerusalem?
That's not a replica, right?
No, it's just a replica. This is where they ended in refugee camp in Lebanon. We went to Sabra Shul too. Basically, I'm saying it's illogical. The whole thing is illogical. We call it it's the works of Satan. Satan, because how come they ratified to make, when they were created to bring peace to the world, why would they create a Jewish state, meaning that one segment should have the authority automatically over, especially over the majority even, but it's going to bring strife. Why are you giving in the name of one distinct religion over the others? It defies logic. Just like they had apartheid, this defies logic. It's the works of Satan, just like today, you're living and breathing over 9 months, 10 months of slaughter.
Yes, Rabbi.
Yeah.
Can we give
Yes.
the last 2 questions, and hopefully very brief, Lila and the gentleman?
For example, right? Yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
one more last.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Assalamualaikum.
Yes.
You seem to be very passionate, convinced of your obligation to give and such. And this seems to resonate with, Dr. Ismail Fahmy.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, and he wrote about the Jewish problem, that's the problem of Palestine. And he proposed a solution. Of course, it's dismantling the state of Israel.
Right.
And there is a solution which is hardly discussed. Say that the Jews must be given the right to settle in Muslim land. In Muslim land. As in the past, in
Right.
Palestine,
Right.
Galicia, and all that. But that doesn't seem to resonate in modern days. We are all nation states. Would you get to comment? Because you propose that you should not leave. That is haram in your religion to leave Israel, to leave exile. And he proposed that the Muslim worship open the doors to Jews like you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So again, I'm not. First of all, you should know that I'm not even throwing the blame on the Jewish people. So many people. We go every year when the Israelis make their Fifth Avenue parade, the Independence Day parade. It's a big parade in New York. And we go, we stand on the side, we demonstrate, we have big signs. And the very religious, you'll see is not there. But there comes the even modern religious and others, and the students go past, we have a big signs saying, according to Judaism, we're not allowed to have a state and so forth. And the kids want to look at us, and they're watching, they're passing, they get confused. What's this all about? And the teacher say, it says in the Torah, you're not allowed to look at somebody who's evil, so don't look at them. You're not allowed to. That's the way. So that's the way they do it. They're inculcated. They're brainwashed, call it whatever. They have classes because they have an endless well of money. Zionism. They have billions of dollars, and they use it for PR and for education in their schools to try to justify what they're doing and vilify the Palestinians, because it's a very easy road to vilify, because our children or grandchildren, many in our communities, of people who are murdered, tortured not so long ago. Like I said, my father escaped from the Nazis. We're a generation removed from this. So the people and these children, a lot of them are coming from parents who are immigrants and they suffered, and they know what anti-Semitism means. Not because they wanted a state, but they were simply because they were Jews. So they tell these people, oh, the Mufti of Jerusalem worked together with Hitler, and these people all the Palestinians hate the Jews. They use fear mongering. So a lot of Jews are simply, unfortunately, and I'm not condoning, I'm not giving them right. But a lot of these people, simply because of fear mongering, that they're going to be thrown into the ocean, they say, by the Palestinian people and so forth. They use fear and vilification of the Palestinian. Why could they do to Palestine, to the Gaza, and if the whole world is silent? We say it's the works of Satan, but they dehumanize the people of Palestine. They make them like they hate the Jews because of the hostages, the story of the hostages. And so they simply are evil. That's the way they move in the mindset of humanity. So I'm not saying it's a lot of the leadership, it's the leadership. And a lot of Jews, unfortunately, go along with this. There are many Jews, by the way, who would be outspoken against Zionism. But I just had a demonstration last week. We were in New York. We have pictures of it. My car, I came back to my car, the tire was slashed, the window was smashed, and it cost a fortune. Today it's with electronic technology, there's fortunes. And they did it with impunity. They do this, and they threaten now the lives of us, the children. And in Israel, the police and the government is the ones who are implicit in this. They're helping it along. In New York, at least, or in the other places, the police will, because of them, they're afraid to come and kill us. But basically, people are afraid to be outspoken. So, or else you would have so much more of a Jewish voice together. But it's true that a lot of this was was enabled by, let's say, the Balfour Mandela. They say, on the contrary, they wanted them out of England. So that was a solution. They'll have them out of England and into Palestine. It'll be a double solution. They get rid of them, and they'll be able to say that they're doing for the Jewish people. And in fact, in the House of Lords and the House of Commons, there was books written on this, that they said the majority of Jews don't even want this. There was an argument between other people in Balfour, and then we have those. It's written in books. We have the statements that others said, "Why do you want this?" The majority of Jews, we're not anti-Semitic. The majority of Jews don't even want this state. So you're right. And there's a lot of other reasons that people say that they want to make the Jewish state there, because that they wanted to be able to have a control of a Western civilization because of the power of oil, and they wanted to have a stabilizing force over there. That could be many reasons. But I'm even saying, even if they meant 100%. Because of humanitarians, there's no justification to go into somebody's house and say, "Hey, give it to this poor guy. It's, after all, he's poor. You don't have any children. Why do you need such a big house?" So you're going to say, "Oh, he's a very anthropologist. He's giving it to the poor person." No, you're going to say he's a thief. So it's no excuse, because whatever their reasons are, even if it's humanitarian reason, they're being conned, they're being duped because of the religion, and it's unacceptable. Unacceptable. That's why what I'm trying to show is not the vilification of Jewish people. It's explaining how it's ridiculous, ironic, and that the acceptance of the state of Israel, because it's a Jewish state, and the condemnation of anti-Semitism, it's all false. That's what we're trying to show. And there could be many reasons, like I said, that why there are other people. But even on the best of reasons, it's unacceptable. You can't do it. You can't take away from what the people are doing. It's against the Palestinians. It's inhumane. It's against what what people call inhumane. We call against God. So it's unacceptable in every way. And then what was again, remind me about listen, there's two issues. There's the issue of ideally Jews living in the other lands, and it would be ideal that we should live. But first of all, it's not always practical. First we have, like I said, divide the issue. First, understand what the crime is, and what the solution is. That we have to, once we diagnose what the problem is, we have to immediately come to a solution. Let's see, right now, a ceasefire. That's the first thing. A ceasefire. How can you continue killing? And you have to understand, once you come to ceasefire, then say, wait a second. What was the whole fight about? Let's start discussing. The fight was not about because of Hamas. No. The problem started when you occupied the land over there. We're not condoning, we're not talking what the issues about. We're talking about what is the reason, the core issue, and let's try to find a solution. Is the solution that Jews should move back to other lands? I don't know if it's possible. I will tell you, even when Gaza was given back to the Muslims, there was some Zionist movements who wanted to go on, and they were disenchanted, and they wanted to go under the Palestinian Authority in Gaza. There were some communities that were living in Gaza, and they called me. I should call Hamas, and I called. and they thought about it, and they said, you see, they're very afraid of taking the responsibility, because God forbid somebody should come and hurt a Jew who could be instigated by the Zionists, which they were implicated in putting bombs in Iraq, by the way. If you know, and in order to create panic, and they did it in Yemen. So you don't know what they're up to. So basically, I don't know if that's the solution. But one thing we have to understand: first of all, it's unacceptable, the occupation. What we can sit down, we can have a way of setting. Also, the issue is that we're not allowed to. We shouldn't be occupying and taking the land. It should be a free Palestine. How Jews will be able to coexist? We can work out that Jews could coexist. That's not a problem. Whether many Jews have to leave because of the decree of Jews not to return in mass is our problem, our issue. Maybe that's also, but we can live together. And what you were asking, I don't know if I'm exactly answering your thing, because he said that the Jews should return to the lands.
So he said that the Muslim response
Right.
to the solution of Israel is to allow Jews to live in Muslim land.
Right.
In the past.
I'm saying, yeah,
And this Professor Ismail
right, yes, yeah.
he was the founder of Chikwa IT. And probably here I would like to request him. Chikwa IT was also founded by our present Prime Minister.
Ah,
So
okay,
both
yeah.
Both of them, right?
So you,
This book is very detailed discussion on problem of
right.
Islamic perspective.
Yeah, but I'm saying, so it could be possible. I mean, it could be that's part of the solution. It could be done. And by the way, our hearts go out. We are hoping for Dr. Mater that he should have a speedy recovery. And he was, I mean, we worked with him. We were so impressed. Always, he's so lucid, so clear. His differentiating between Judaism and Zionism, and such a just man. We hope God should give him a speedy recovery, and really looking forward that it should continue with his fight for that. And altogether, Malaysia is a good country with it, standing up for the people of Palestine. Yeah, let me just say that. That's like say that it's not the vilification of people. Really, I would like to stress that many people aren't snared. We go out and people come with such emotions, Jewish people, and they say, "How dare you? What are you doing? Don't you see what's going to happen? They're going to murder all the Jews." A lot of these people are simply because they're afraid of being murdered and so forth. So it's just fear mongering and hiding the truth that we live together, that Muslims and Jews live together, and that we can live together. But and like this, the support comes a lot of times because of using false, sometimes evil ideas, sometimes good ideas, but it's wrong, and the solution is one, not to take the land from the Palestinian people, and we can work out with God's help a solution, and we'll all turn back. We'll turn back the Jewish people to the Jewish religion. They'll respect the Jewish leaders. They will find that it is a just and a very able way of coexisting and peace and doing what's right. That's what you were required to do. Return the land to the people of Palestine.
So doing what's right. I think with that, I think great round of applause to Rabbi Weiss. I think 1 hour and a half went pretty briefly, when we have a very engaging participation from you guys. So with that, I'd like to also thank everybody for your engaging discussions. And also before we end, I'd like to invite as a token of appreciation, our CEO, the Said Azman, to present a token of appreciation to both Rabbi Weiss and Rabbi Yusuf.
Thank you so very much. Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm sure a lot of you have a lot of questions for both of the rabbis. So afterwards, feel free to get the pamphlets and cards from them.
Yeah, there's pamphlets, and you can take anything from our site. It's download, use. If you need high resolution, we can both pictures and books or whatever it may be. Also, look, I would love to continue. We could continue.
We have a simple refreshment.
And also to those who want to hear more about Rabbi Weiss, iaismalaysia will be having a podcast later this afternoon, and please wait for it online to be published. Thank you very much again. Thank you, everybody, and see you again.
Please spread the word. Spread the word.
And also we have